Arts Adventure is about art, artists, and how art is made. So stop what you're doing and come on along on our next Arts Adventure. So what I'm going to show you right now is how to use an overhead projector to project an image onto a canvas. You can see that the canvas is set up, and we're going to take a look here. This is the projector we're using. It's an old one that I picked up on eBay. You can buy them for about $20–25. Okay. Alright, you can't see anything on the canvas at the moment, or you can barely see anything on the canvas at the moment because the lights are on. So I'm going to step over here and turn off the lights. There you can see the image. I chose Elvis because it was a pretty simple design. Okay, we've turned the lights back on, and that took about maybe 5 minutes. But you can see on the canvas now, we've transferred the image of Elvis onto the canvas. We're going to take a look at the image and compare it to the original and see if we need to make any changes, and then we'll start applying the paint. Okay, I had to add a little detail to Elvis's face, but it's pretty small and it's hard to tell, so more than likely we'll just play it by ear when we actually start putting the paint on. Okay, as you can see, I've prepared my work area here with a fresh paper towel, which I use to take up excess water and paint as I'm painting. A cup with some water in it. That's to rinse the brushes if I need to. I've got a large brush to cover big areas. That's a large flat brush, a smaller flat brush, and a pointed round brush, and that's for getting details. You can see that I've got 3 colors out, but I'm actually going to mix the orange and the red because the orange is oranger than I want, the red is redder than I want, but I still want to have a kind of a bright orange. So I'm going to mix those two together to create that color, which is what's going to make up the background. And then I'm going to use the cobalt blue for the silhouette. So, oh, and also I use just a piece of glass as my palette to mix my colors on, because after I'm done, I let the palette dry, I let the paint dry on the palette, and then I just scrape it off with a flat single edge razor. Alright, we're ready to start mixing the paint. I'm going to start with the bright orange, and I'm going to put some of that on the palette. And then I'm going to take some red. Now I'm not going to mix it directly with the orange. I'm going to put the red on the palette. And then I'll mix them together. And then I'm going to use the cobalt blue. These are pretty inexpensive colors that you can get at almost any craft store, but they do the job. Alright, wet my brush and make sure that it's flexible get rid of the excess water. I'm going to take some of the orange, put it over here, and some of the red, and I'm going to mix it up. This is a little bit like cooking. You mix to taste. You can see that's not as bright as the bright orange, not as dark as the red, but it's still an orange. I think I want a little more of that bright orange in there. Mix it up good. And then we're going to apply it to the canvas. I'm going to apply the orange pretty much everywhere that I want orange. I like to paint the edges of my canvas as I go along. And the thing about this is that you can still see the design through this paint. If you use heavier paints, you may not be able to do that. You have to work a little quickly because acrylic dries pretty fast, but you don't have to be too concerned about it because you can always go over it. Okay, here we go. Painting the sides allows someone to take the painting and hang it without having to frame it. I'm going to put a little water on this, stretch it a little bit, make it flow a little easier. Looking pretty fiery. I like that. Alright, mixing some more orange. Now I'm going to get some of these orange areas on the interior part of Elvis here. Elvis's face. And you can almost see the painting. Okay. Now I'm going to clean my brush up using the water that I had on the work table. And I'm going to go at it with the blue here. Okay. We're going to put the blue on the interior here. Doesn't have to be exact. Just want to make sure to cover it. Now's when you want to do a pretty good job of staying inside of the lines. You can see the lines underneath that orange. We're going to try to follow them pretty close. Always had that little curl on his forelock there. A little too much paint that time. Might need to switch to my detail brush. Okay, put that there, that comes down. Just apply the paint until you've got all the areas covered, and then you can go back and touch up your brush strokes. The main thing is get the paint on there at this point. Okay, now I'm going to use my flat brush to fill in these lines. Just follow what you drew on there. Nothing to it. We've got some detail we need to take care of here. Got a little detail in Elvis's hand that I need to touch up. Well, let's get a little blue on that. And then there's the detail on Elvis's hand. And then we're going to put some detail in Elvis's face. And there you have it, the king. Now I'm going to show you how to create a grid to use to enlarge your images. Basically, you're going to need a ruler and a felt tip pen. This one has two different sizes. It has a fine point and it has a thicker point. And depending on the size of the image that you're going to start with, you can use either one of the points. We're going to be working with small images, so I'm going to use the fine point, and I'm going to use centimeters as my guide rather than inches. So we want to put the ruler on the piece of glass, and this looks like it's about 14 centimeters. So I'm going to mark about every centimeter all the way down the glass on one side, and I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing across the bottom of the glass. Looks like it's about 9.5. We're just going to do 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then we move up to the other end, and we're going to mark out 9 up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then we line up the ruler between the marks on each side of the glass, and we make a mark across the glass. And you do that all the way up on one side. I'm going to switch the camera angle here so that you can get a little bit better look at it. Okay, we zoomed in a little bit, and we'll continue. We line up the ruler with the marks on both sides, make a line. Line up the ruler, make a line. Line up the ruler, make another line. You do this all the way down one end of the glass to the other. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to be pretty close, because whatever you do here will determine how your image enlarges. And then we turn it sideways and do the same thing going the opposite direction. And then as soon as we get this done, we'll show you what to do with it. And there you have a grid, and it's reusable. The next step is to line up your image that you're going to use with the grid. So we want to make sure that we line up the straight edges with the straight lines on the grid. And then we want to take a little piece of tape, a couple of little pieces of tape, just regular Scotch tape, packing tape, whatever, masking tape, it doesn't matter. Just want to cut a little piece. We're gonna okay, we line up the straight sides of the grid with the straight lines on the image, and then we're gonna take the tape, maybe. Then we're going to take the tape and we're going to tape the image in place so that we don't have to keep readjusting it as we're transferring it to the, and then it looks something like that. Now, I'm going to move these things out of the way, and we're going to do the same thing that we did to create the grid in order to create the grid on our canvas. So we want to count how many squares and how big the image is. The image is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So our canvas is 8 by 10. This is 7 by 9. We'll just make our image 8 by 10. We're going to mark this off in inches. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We do the same thing at the top and do the same thing across. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with the grid. I think you can probably figure out where this is going by now. We don't want to make the lines real dark because we don't want them to show up when we apply paint. We just want them to be light and just so that we can see them. And there's one set of lines. Rotate the canvas, do the other set of lines. This is a lot more time consuming than using an overhead projector. But if you don't have an overhead projector, this is one of your options. Okay, so you can see we've got an image with squares and we've got a canvas with squares. And then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of compare what we've got going on here. So we can see that the lower corner, it's a little bit above this line, but let me see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 10 inches tall, and we need to make this 10 inches tall, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That works out just about right, leaves a little head space. Okay, we can see that the corner of her dress starts 1, 2, 3 squares up. And the third square up, 1, 2, 3, it angles in just a little bit. And then there's a curve that cuts over to the corner. So we draw a little curve, and that keeps going another little bit into that, and then it cuts back. and then it cuts over one to almost into the third space there. So there we go. And then our strap, which will come right about here, goes up 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 goes up into, and on the inside of the, so, and you keep repeating this. Basically you transfer the image from your grid to your canvas. I'm going to go ahead and sketch out the image here, and then we'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Made a little adjustment and moved the image over so that the corner of her dress is in the corner of the grid. Just makes it a little easier to track where everything is. Okay, so. Well, I confess I got a little confused with shifting the image, but I took a little time and got it straightened out. And now I'm just putting the final touches on Marilyn's image here. I'm going to kind of just color it in a little bit so that I can tell what's supposed to be dark and what's supposed to be light. But once we get it shaded in, it's pretty clear. And there you can see that the image transfers from the grid to the canvas. Well, Marilyn was one of the hottest stars of her time, so we're going to do Marilyn with two shades of red here. We're going to go with a bright red, which we'll use for the background, and then we'll go with a Tuscan red, which is a darker red, to do the shadows. But there you can see the two colors of red we're going to use. Alright, I'm going to start out with the darker color red. I'm sorry, I'm going to start out with the bright red to paint the background. Here we go. Put the red on all over. Putting some water with this to stretch it. Make it easier to put on and cover the canvas. And also makes it easier to see through. Painting the edges of the canvas. Again, we paint the edges of the canvas so that if somebody wants to hang it without using a frame, they can do that. We're going to let the paint dry, and then we'll put on the darker color. Okay, well, we let that paint dry a little bit, and I'm going to start, this time I'm going to start with some of the details. And I'm just following the lines that we drew on here earlier. Just want to make sure I get the right lines here. have some detail areas around the eyes. And her nose, her eyebrows, you can already see her starting to emerge here. Once I get some of these details put in here, and you don't have to be exact. Sometimes loose and not exact works out better. And I'm going to paint the edges where there she is, Marilyn. That's our program for today. We'd like to thank our sponsors for making this program possible, and we'd like to thank you, our audience. We look forward to seeing you again when we embark on another arts adventure.